Hello, welcome to Awana Connect Online Part 2. Recruit, retain, and disciple your volunteers. So thanks for watching, and let's go ahead and get started. So volunteers, you got to have them. You can't do this ministry alone. And not only do you need to find volunteers for your ministry, but you need to keep them, you need to train them, you need to support them, you need to create the right environment for them. And so we're going to go ahead and talk about that. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing you need to do, I'm just going to give you some tips along the way here, and then I'll give you some practical ideas on recruiting. So the first thing you need to do is create the right environment. So what I mean by that is this, is your club well-disciplined? And so if you get people to join your team and they come to Awana and the kids are raining and there's chaos and their kids are undisciplined and they're running around screaming and hollering, those volunteers are probably not going to want to stick around too long. So, and you know, what I mean by disciplined is not a heavy-handed sit down, shut up, but disciplined from the standpoint of, is the club organized? Are the kids doing what they're supposed to be doing? Is there a process for if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing? And so make sure that your club is disciplined. And if it's not, what's going to end up happening is your leaders are going to start getting these calls like, hey, Pastor Joe is going to be teaching this class on a Revelation Wednesday night, and I just absolutely can't be at the Awana Club anymore. They might not tell you the kids are unruly, but that's really what it's all about. So make sure your club's well disciplined. Is your club fun and exciting? So the kids want to come to a fun and exciting Awana Club, but your leaders want to come to a fun and exciting Awana Club. So make sure that there's excitement, there's fun for the kids, for the leaders. You're leading that. There's theme nights. There's always a happy time there. Make sure that your club is fun and exciting for the leaders. Next thing you want to think about with creating the right environment, is there a job description for what you'd like your volunteers to do? So you're recruiting these people, you're looking for people to join your team. Do you even know what you want them to do? Or you just say, hey, we need help and come on over. So is there a job description of what you want these volunteers? You're kind of creating the environment for these volunteers to join your team and have success. And then lastly, for creating the right environment, is there adequate training? And are you training in them online, live training? You have a process for training and helping them know what to do. I mean, for years, we would have people come and show up and just say, well, I hope you do well. But if they don't know what they're supposed to be doing, you're not going to keep them very long. So make sure there's a training process. And also, at the beginning of the year, we have a training, usually August, give or take. We have a kickoff night. We have some training. We have some online training. But you may have volunteers that come along September or October, November, December. Hey, and they might ask you, hey, do you need help for your Awana ministry? And so you want to have a process for training them. If you have volunteers join your team or want to join your team later on in the club year. And we've got some online training, and I'm going to be talking about that in another Connect down the road. So create the right environment for success. Secondly, are you communicating the right message? And here's what I mean by that. If you ask people, hey, you know what, this our Awana Club, it's chaos. There's kids running all over the place. We need help. We don't have enough leaders, and well, what kind of message is that? And who wants to join that kind of ministry? So the message you want to share is that God is working in our club, and here's what's going on. And this child got saved, and we had a baptism last year because of this. And Johnny wants to hear more and more about the Bible and hear more about Jesus. And kids are memorizing a lot of scripture. Would you like to be part of that? So have good messaging. The message you don't want to have is, hey, this is chaos and we don't have enough people. We need help, or we're going to shut this thing down. That is not the message you want to have. So now this next thought on messaging is replace volunteer and serve with the word team. You're building a team, and everybody wants to be part of a team. So, and also when you have a team, you're just not recruiting people so that you can use them for your thing. You're trying to build a team and communicate with those people and serve with them in Awana, see them outside of Awana. A lot of my closest friends I serve with. We vacation together, we spend time together. I know their kids, they know my kids, and so create that kind of a thing where they're part of a team of volunteers. Reaching kids with the gospel. So the other thing, you want to create a culture where every one of those leaders is part of a team. And then the other thing you want to think about is I put empower every club director to recruit their own leaders. Let them recruit, train, and motivate their own set of leaders. So that's good messaging. So you create the right environment for success. You have the right messaging. And so I want to give you some thoughts on tools to recruit. So the first tool you have, big tool, is to pray. And I know that's obvious, but I just put that down. Sometimes we forget about that. And so I would say pray, pray that people will emerge, but also pray that you have the right heart for building your team. Okay. So first thing is pray. Second thing you might want to think about is have a kickoff announcement on a Sunday. Sometimes we call this Awana Sunday. And so what you could do is ask your pastor. This might be the first or second week of August. Ask your pastor if you can have 5 or 6 minutes. Maybe play a short video or have a team member give a testimony of how God was using them to reach these kids with the gospel. And then maybe set up a table in the foyer of the church and have on that table job descriptions of the team members that you need, and have a sign-up sheet, and maybe also even have a spot there or some handouts or registration forms for your kids. So you create the announcement on a Sunday. There are people that are in church. Maybe do that 1 or 2 Sundays in a row. One other thing you might want to think about is when you sit at the foyer or at the table at the foyer, maybe dress up in some crazy costume so that people want to come over and talk to you. And then again, you're creating the message, hey, this is fun and exciting. We're having a good time with Awana, and we'd like you to be part of it. The other thing you might want to think about, we used to do this, is host a church-wide volunteer ministry fair. So we usually do that September, October. And, Awana is not the only ministry in the church that needs volunteers. So after in the fellowship hall, there would be a bunch of tables, and we'd set up some, each ministry of the church would have a table, and they'd have somebody to talk. And we usually get 1 or 2 volunteers out of that. Have a sign-up sheet, have the job descriptions of what you need, talk about the ministry successes. So when people come by, again, you're not saying, hey, we're desperate. We need help. Hey, God's working in our ministry. We'd like you to be part of it. Next thing in a tool to recruit is preschool parents. So sometimes, those preschool moms, they don't think their preschooler can live without them. Now, once those kids get to be first or second or third grade, the moms and dads are anxious to get them, send them out. But the preschool moms think that their kids can't leave without them. So start recruiting there. What we would do is we'd have a snack sign-up sheet, and then the parents, we'd have to ask the parents to sign up for a snack, and those parents who would bring a snack, they have to stay for the night and serve. So that's part of their deal. And then you start building a relationship with those people, start making fun. They're there for a fun and exciting night. And they see how God's working in the ministry. You're building a relationship. Then the next thing I'd say, my recruiting talk was, hey, you know what? These are for preschool, Cubbies. Hey, you'd look good in blue. And then they recruit in Cubbies, and the next 2 years later, they're in Sparks, and then in T&T. Preschool parents. So the other thing, student leaders. So there's a lot of clubs in our area that maybe a third to half of their leaders, sometimes couple clubs even more, their leaders are student leaders. So they're teens who serve. And so there's a lot of ways you can do that, but don't overlook teens. A lot of those teens, especially if they've come up in the club, they may know Awana better than the adults do. And so you can have them leading games. You can have them telling a Bible story. You can have them doing the small group time. You know, the interesting thing about that too is when you have a teenager who leads a child to Christ, it's kind of dual ministry. Their faith is in concrete. And then, of course, you're going to supervise those teens, and you sort of have a dual ministry, because you'll have a ministry to the kids, but you also have a ministry to the teens as they're leading an Awana club. So next thought is using dads for game time. Now, there was a club a few years ago, and so what they did is they got 3 or 4 dads, and those dads rotated at game time. So every week there was a different dad leading game time. So that might be something to think about. Maybe the dads are apprehensive about coming and sharing a Bible lesson, but they might be willing to lead game time once a month, twice a month, something like that. So think about dads for the game time. Next thing is your senior saints in your church. So maybe you could have senior saints that either show up every time, show up every couple of weeks. We got a lot of senior saints in our ministry, in our Awana club in my church. You could have them be a small group leader. The interesting thing too about senior saints is they see the value of raising children to be godly children. So they're very tuned into that. So you can have them, hey, maybe there's somebody who's a senior saint. Hey, can you teach a Bible lesson? Can you do the large group time once a month? Can you do it twice a month? You could use senior saints for security, and I would say security and hospitality. There's a club down in Bullhead City, and they have some senior saints, and I believe they give them a yellow shirt, some walkie-talkies, and they're security, but really they're a welcoming groups. And when I show up there, they know me by now, but in the beginning they're like, "Who are you?" And then once they found out who I was, they were very friendly. They can direct traffic a little bit, and maybe those senior saints, especially senior men, may want to just be security and hospitality. And so you could have them, wander around the outside of the church, making sure everybody's safe, creating some welcoming atmosphere. So you could use them for that. You could use senior saints for check-in. Hey, your club starts at 6:00. We've got a bunch of kids showing up here at 6:00. Can you show up at 5:45? We'll have all the check-in stuff laid out for you. And you can check in, stay till 6:15, 6:30, and then you can go home. So they can just do check-in. Or you could use senior saints for maybe for the Awana store. So however often you have the Awana store, monthly, quarterly, and ask them to shop, shop for the store, prepare everything, serve that night. There might be some senior saints who would want to do that. You could have some on-call volunteers. So maybe they don't want to serve every time or every week, but you could say, hey, can you be available in case somebody's sick or some other problem, that you can come and be a fill-in. Now, the other thing too is the tools to recruit. Empower other people. If you're a Awana ministry director or even a club director, if you're a Awana ministry director for sure, empower your club directors to recruit their own team. Let them build their own team. And that way, if you're the Awana ministry director, you don't have to do everything, but you can get other people. They probably travel in different circles than you do within the church. So they'll know people that you don't know or be friends with people in the church that you don't know. And that's a whole other avenue of volunteers. So empower other people to recruit. Now, I will say about this in recruiting, I'll just give you a couple, tips is ask personally. So, ask people personally, or next best thing is by the phone. Next best thing is maybe a text. And the next best thing is an individual email, not a group email, but an individual email where you call somebody and say, hey, God's working in our ministry. We're really excited about what's going on. We'd love you to be part of it. And here's what we need you to do. So those are some tips on some tools for building your team. So the next thing I want to talk about is retaining your volunteers. So you got these people. There's been a lot of times where we've got people to join our team, or somebody else has got somebody to join our team, and they only stick around for a few weeks. A lot of that goes back to club discipline. It's fun and exciting. They didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. They didn't feel like they were valued. And that's another thing too. If you find somebody to join your team, find something for them to do. Don't let older, more established leaders take ministry away from those new people, because if they come and they go, oh, they're not going to need me here. They got this guy doing this and this guy doing that. I just kind of sat around. You're kind of defeating yourself. So make sure if you have somebody join your team, especially those first few nights, give them something to do. So retaining volunteers. I would suggest this: have a written job description for every team role. Okay. And what you might want to do is have your club directors think about that and say, okay, at game time, what would I like you to do at game time? You want to stand online with the kids. You want to help them figure out the right games. You want to help with discipline. Have them write down those club directors, or you as a Awana ministry director, write down a job description for every team role. So that way you're solidifying what those people are going to be doing and what you want them to do, so the communication level is high. Do a basic training for new volunteers. Now, Awana does some basic training. There's going to be a new online basic training coming out here at the end of July, and I'm super excited about that, and that'll be very helpful for you. So you could use that, or you could do it yourself. So you could have, we would generally do is on our kickoff meeting, we'd have just a general session, and then I would ask the club directors to train, hey, Cubbies go over here, TNT goes over here, Sparks go over here, and have those club directors train their leaders. So, and I would tell them, hey, if your club's going to go well, it's because you trained your people well. If it's not going to go well, it's because you didn't train them well. And then, coach the directors on what they need to be doing at the training. What do you want them to do? Show up early, pray together, text if you can't make it on time. At game time, I'd like you to do this. At large group time, can you do this? And have that as part of the basic training. So you want to train your new volunteers. Now, again, like I say, there's some online training. And then if you have people that want to join your team later on in the year, November, December, wherever, have some online training ready, so that I remember, somebody'd come to me or hey, Mary here I'd get introduced to Mary and she'd want to serve. And I'd say, okay, we'll show up next week. And I wasn't really ready for how to equip her. And then she might stick around for a week or two, and then she'd disappear. So if you have some online training prepared, what you might want to do, have an email template, so that if you have somebody that comes to you and say, hey, we'd like to serve, then what are you going to do? So, hey, thank you, Joe, for wanting to volunteer. And here's our online training. Go here. Here's our child protection policies. Read that. Here's our background checks. Do that. And then have them have that email template ready. So when those people show up, hey, let me get your email. I'm going to send you some stuff. We have some online training. We have some child protection stuff we'd like you to go through. And then they do the online training, and then we'd ask them to come and shadow somebody for a couple of weeks. So you figure they've gone through the online training, maybe give them a roll book. The roll books are digital now, online training, give them a roll book, have them do the background checks, have them follow somebody. That's a good process for getting somebody going. So that's the next thing, is make sure that those people are trained. Next thing you might want to do is have what I called keep in touch calls. And I would do them weekly, every other week. And so when I was the Awana ministry director, I used to call my club directors our club was Tuesday. I would call them Monday night or Monday afternoon and say, hey, we got balloon night this week. Are you all good? Do you need anything from me? And then most of the time they would say, oh yeah, that's great. Everything's fine. Sometimes they would have needs or problems or personal problems that we could talk about, I could pray with. And so those are great ways to build relationships with your club directors. And then club directors maybe call your leaders weekly. And then maybe leaders call your clubbers weekly. So we're not just doing a program, but we're building a ministry. And so you'd be surprised. You call your directors weekly just for a couple of minutes. Most of the time it's a couple of minutes. Every once in a while it might last longer, but just a couple of minutes, and just build that team of of people in your ministry, and it's like glue to keep everybody together. The next thing I put in here for retaining your volunteers is thank your team members continually. So send them cards, send them texts, Facebook messages, phone calls. And, sometimes you just never know what people are going through in their life. And you calling them just at the right time and saying, and not like, hey, how come you weren't on time last week? But just saying, hey, thank you for serving. And even let's say club starts at 6 o'clock. And let's say for some reason they didn't get there till 6:15. You wouldn't call them. I mean, they got there at 6:15. They could have not showed up at all. So you just thank them continually and build a culture of gratitude within your team members. And then also when you're thanking them, hey, thank them for, hey, this is kingdom work. And so thank you for reaching kids. Undoubtedly, what you're doing, Mary, there's going to be kids in heaven every week from what you're doing. So you're always throwing out the kingdom purpose, the gospel purpose, and just do that all the time. I mean, that's, continually thank them. When you see them, my club now, I'm not really involved too much, but when I show up there, I just walk around and thank people and ask them if there's anything I can do for them, and just show that I appreciate all they're doing. So thank your team members. Build community with your volunteers. So what I mean by that is, hey, don't just recruit them to do your thing on Wednesday night. Have Friday night pizza parties. Invite people over your house. And like I said, a lot of the volunteers that I used to serve with, we vacationed together. I knew their kids. They knew my kids. We vacationed together. We spent time together. We built a community for our ministry. And then the last thing I put on here, stop losing volunteers by not empowering them to bring their ideas to the ministry. So if you have new team members and they say, hey, what do you think about this? As much as you can, go with their ideas. 90% of their ideas is better than 100%, or wait a minute, 100% of their ideas is better than 90% of your ideas most of the time. Now, if they have some crazy thing about, we've got to finish club at 10 o'clock at night or something like that, but empower your volunteers to bring their ideas into the club. So hope that was helpful. Now we'll just say one more thing. So when you're thinking about your ministry, excuse me, and you can't find enough volunteers. If you can't find enough volunteers, then adapt your ministry to fit the volunteers you do have. Sometimes, I remember several years ago, there was a lady at our club and everybody was sick and she couldn't find any parents to help. And she called me and said, I think I'd like to cancel our club tonight because these parents don't want to help. And so I said, no, let's not cancel. Why don't you come and let's talk? So she got there, and first thing I told her, I said, hey, thank you for coming. And I said, I know these parents didn't come, but you're here, and that's important. And what if all you could do as an Awana leader is share a Bible lesson, teach these kids about Jesus, have a fun game time. If you had to do the whole thing yourself, could you? If you have a Sparks group of 15, 20 people, all you could do is, play games and, teach a Bible lesson, have them memorize some scripture together as a group, that would be good. And so if you don't have the volunteers you need, then just do the ministry. There's some ministries there was a ministry years ago that they had 40 kids and they had one leader, and they had to do things a little bit different, but they got it done and kids heard the gospel. Some kids came to know the Lord. So keep that in mind too. If you can't find the leaders you need, just adapt. And if you need help with that, I can help with that, and I can give you some ideas. So I hope that was helpful. Like I say, we went a little long. Hope that was helpful. You need to find team members, keep team members, build community. Just a couple things. if you want to, if you have, this is the Facebook group that we're using for this. So if you have team members and you'd like to tune them in, have them be part of this, our area community of Awana leaders, have them join the Facebook group. You can, if you're part of this Facebook group, you can invite them as well. You don't have to ask me to invite them. You can invite them in. So you can go to that. And that's a good thing. Or you can have them go on our YouTube channel and ask them to subscribe if they're not a Facebook user. And so that way you're kind of leveraging your time where you can tune them into some of our training and you don't have to be there. So hope that was helpful. Thank you again for all you're doing. Looking forward to a great year. There's a lot of clubs over the last couple of weeks. I've gotten calls from a lot of clubs who took last year off due to COVID, but are preparing to relaunch. And there's some hiccups with that. You know, we got to restart everything, but I know God can use that. And so I'm excited about this year. So thanks a bunch, and we'll see y'all down the road. Bye-bye.